So in this video, we're going to talk about whether elections in Russia are free and fair. And before I do, I want to preface by looking at what the United States government says about this. This is a U.S. mission to the OSCE. Russian electoral conditions are not conducive to free and fair Duma elections. Now, this was published not recently, but back in September 23, 2021, well before the war in Ukraine. The repressive actions taken by the Russian government before and during September 17th through 19th Duma elections obstructed electoral transparency, hampered independent media coverage of the elections, and prevented genuine opposition participation, severely undermining credibility of the elections. Well, when you're doing those kinds of things, like not allowing real opponents to run, and we're going to see what the opponents are right now and whether they're real opponents, just give it a moment, we'll get to that video, then your elections aren't really fair. We are troubled by widespread reports of electoral abuses over the 3 days of voting, including ballot stuffing and coercion to vote. Okay. The Kremlin has also increased pressure on private technology companies to remove from social media platforms political content expressing dissent or criticism. Okay, well, with that as a backdrop, let's start to look at what's happened. About 2 weeks ago, this lady, she was an anti-war candidate challenging President Putin. She didn't even make it through the application phase. They said there were hundreds of errors on her application, and she probably dodged a bullet because she wouldn't necessarily have a good run trying to challenge Putin and getting things out about Putin that maybe Putin doesn't want to be seen as. So Putin has eliminated Navalny. He's now off in what's the name of the wolf prison, like Arctic wolf prison or something like that. It's up in the polar region in Russia. So he's out of the picture. He's not legally able to vote, and he's out of harm's way where he can't really say a whole lot, or it's hard for his people to get to him. So he eliminated his biggest threat. She might have been his next biggest threat. And we're going to look at what these other candidates are saying here in the Russian media monitor. Now, the clip isn't long, but watch what they have to say about, are you really, do you think you're going to win the election? Here's what they had to say. Are you planning to win? Candidate, of course not. Do I look like an idiot? Okay, so that's the first thing. If you're running, but you're not actually planning to win, is there any kind of free and fair election involved here? Okay, here's the next one, Danikov. Are you planning to win? It depends on what you consider by a victory. Okay, so, and that's fair. I mean, if surviving is victory, then that's okay. I mean, he's not trying, like, none of these guys are going to say, yes, I'm going to beat Putin. Do you think you can win? Now, this is Nikolai Kardakov. Kardakov is the Communist Party candidate. I talked about him in my three big stories segment the other day. He's a Communist Party candidate. He won 14% of the vote a number of years ago. Now, by the way, while I'm on this thought, Putin wants to win, and he wants to win huge. And I'll tell you why he wants to win huge as soon as I'm done with this video, like or this section from the Russian media monitor. But the way that he sees this is not the way that we see this. Kardakov's big issue is he's about collective farming, like what was done in the 1930s, because as he said, and I quoted this the other day, he believes that that's what prepared them for the Great Patriotic War. Well, the collective farming in the 1930s actually caused Russia to starve, and it was what caused the Holodomor in Ukraine, because they took all the food from Ukraine and then kept people there without food. And so that's where he is, and he's anti-capitalist, and he's pro-war, and he would say pro-special military operation. He's not against the war, but you can't be for the war. You can't be against the war when the laws on the book say that if you speak against the war, you can go to jail. So it kind of puts you in a bind if you're an opposition candidate. Okay, I can't talk about this way, win or not win. Now, why can't he talk about it this way? And so that's the thing, they bound them. If I can control your speech, I can control the way that you think or the way that you act. And so that's why I'm a big free speech guy. Like, and free speech doesn't mean that I like what you have to say, but if I can control your speech, I control you. And that's largely what the books in Russia have about, like, the laws, the way that they're written about the special military operation. But they also know the real picture on the ground is nobody's going to beat Putin. If anybody thinks that they're going to be surprised and Putin's going to be upset, that's kind of crazy. Are you planning to win? I'm planning to do everything to consolidate the Russian society. Notice he didn't say that he's planning to win. He's going to do these other good things, but he doesn't think he's going to win. Nobody thinks they're going to win except for Putin, who is kind of guaranteed because he's rigged the system. How about winning? Are you planning to win? You should always dare to dream. That's his answer. It's not, yes, I'm going to win. Like in America, candidates say that I'm going to win until the day they drop out. Like, right? Nobody's willing to say that they're going to win. So are you not planning to win? You know, only the Lord God can plan. Okay, so he knows he's not going to win. Okay, here's Boris Nadezhd, that the conclusion of this electoral campaign, I will stay alive, remain free, and won't be declared a foreign agent. Wow. Let's hear that again. I will stay alive, remain free, and won't be declared a foreign agent. Like, that's pretty amazing. Like, that shouldn't be the standard. Okay, now I talked about that they have a different view of this. Now, Putin thinks, like, if you go back and you look at like the Crimea election, and it was like 90+% voted for this, and they think that that looks free and fair. In a democracy, in a Western democracy, the US, Western Europe, whatever, if you get like 60% to 40%, you've blown out the opposition. Like, that is crazy high. But there they think, no, I want to show that I had 95% of the vote. Nobody wanted to vote against me. But that doesn't actually happen in practice unless it's a banana republic or it's rigged or something along those lines. Now, Putin not only wants, and this came from an article about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago that I read, Putin not only wants to win by a huge margin. So this guy that had the communist candidate that had 14%, he wants to have more of that 14%. Like, Putin wants to slice up some of that 40. Putin wants probably 90+% of the vote. And he also wants a huge turnout. Now, a lot of Russians do support Putin. That's true. They see Putin as like restoring their dignity and identity after the Soviet Union collapsed, like he's rebuilding things. And so I'm not going to take anything like that away from him, but it's rigged. Now, he doesn't mind that it's rigged because the way that, and this comes from The Road to Unfreedom, that's why I'm showing this book. Tim Snyder talks about this because an election is not so that every person can have their vote, but it's a symbolic thing that shows that we are together and unified, and then we have a mandate to move forward. But it doesn't matter that it's rigged as long as we have gone through the symbolic ceremony. It's kind of like going to church and not believing in the ceremony, but we went to church and did the thing that we were supposed to do at church, so now we can just move on. I think that's a fairer picture of how they think about elections, but none of these candidates were saying anything to show that they actually plan on winning. That's how elections are going to go in Russia, and we'll watch it. But let me leave you with one last thought. If you can't be surprised, if in your lifetime you've never been surprised by who won an election, and you can't be surprised by who might win an election, then you might not have free and fair elections. Okay. That's all that I have to say. Thank you for your time. I'd very much like to hear what you have to say about this in the comments below. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.